Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Small Talk. I'm really pleased about today's guest because I've invited him on the show before, but like a lot of people, he's so busy in his life because he has a podcast that's called Bigger Than Me podcast, and it's he does interviews, and they're not like my interviews. I think his are much more in depth and mostly with Indigenous people, I believe. And he gets into the guts of the problems or the issues, whatever. He also has a magazine. He issues an online magazine, and that talks about the upcoming guests and what they will be discussing. Now, I just found out something new, so this is what we're going to be talking about today. First of all, my guest is Aaron Pete. Welcome to the show, Aaron.
Thank you for having me.
So now, oh yeah, for sure. Now, tell us what your latest news is.
I am currently running for chief of my community, Chawathil First Nation.
Chawathil, is that in Hope?
Yes, it is on Lougheed Highway and then in Hope as well.
Okay. So no, I know you have like you've taken criminology and criminal justice in at the Fraser Valley, right? UFV, I believe.
Yes.
And I want to know what qualifies you to be a chief to begin with.
That's an interesting question. So currently, chiefs act in a variety of capacities, one of which is to lead the community and kind of guide conversations. And I think I've gotten a lot of experience through developing relationships in my criminology degree, of hearing different perspectives, being challenged, being open to new ideas. And then through law school, there was a big emphasis on policy, First Nations economic development, and how to really utilize relationships, looking at contracts. All of those tools, I think, really provide me a broad understanding of how to work with a community and how to build them up. And then I've built a lot of relationships over the years with individuals who understand Aboriginal rights and title, who understand contract law, who understand negotiations. And so my hope is to bring those contacts, bring those connections, and really help facilitate healthier conversations in my community.
So what do you think your community needs that you're hoping to bring?
I think my community needs somebody who's unbiased. One of the challenges I think we have in my community is many people look at last names rather than the ideas the person is running on. And so a lot of people don't realize that we received a democratic system, which means to vote and to have your thoughts known. But the best practices wasn't, I think, well explained to many communities. And so a lot of communities are working on that now. How do we make sure that it's the ideas and the decisions the policymakers, the chief and council are making that are decided on rather than just last names? We fall a lot into fighting over that family got a lot of this and this family focuses on that. And that really sets us back because then it's not the best ideas winning out, it's which family has the most family members winning out. And I think that's dangerous. And so my hope is to come in. I haven't really sought a lot of support from my own family in regards to running because I want to show that I'm just running for what's best for the community members as a whole. We have about 600 members, a little over that. So I want to act in all of their best interests. I have no interest in doing my family big favors. I have no interest in doing another family big favors. I just want what's best for community members as a whole. So I think that that's what makes me different than other people running.
Sounds great. Yeah. Gosh, I was just going to ask a question. It's just gone out of my head. Here it is. Yeah, you were not actually nominated, right?
I was nominated by the former chief of Chawathil.
So why did she nominate you?
I think she sees the same thing. Chawathil actually supported me in all of my education, my undergraduate degree and my law degree. And my mindset is to return to the community and give back what I learned and give them the tools and resources of everything I gained. I don't think that I'm any better than. I know that ego is a huge thing in my community right now of like, oh, are you running because you think you're so intelligent? I just have different tools than other people. I've just had my eyes open to different areas. And I think with law school, it gives you the humility to know you really don't know that much. You just know how to go find solutions to problems. And so that's what I'm hoping to bring. And so she saw that within me. She saw my desire just to help and not continue the kind of same cycles, but being willing to deal with the conflict. Because I think that will be a big thing in my first couple of months is things are going to change, and that's going to be tough for some people. That's going to be uncomfortable, and they have to get comfortable with that, because I've read, I've understood what other communities have done to succeed, and now it's my job to kind of bring that about for the community. So that's going to ruffle some feathers, and you have to embrace that.
Right, for sure. So as a chief, now, are you part of a council?
Yes, so chief and council operate very similarly to a municipality. We're much smaller, which makes it more challenging, I think, because every community has their own chief and council, which is like having a mayor and council for every 600 people, every 500 people. So there's a lot more bureaucracy within First Nations communities, which makes it more challenging because we're so small, yet we all have the same kind of delegations in terms of our responsibility, which can kind of slow progress down. And so we are similar in that regard. We don't take in as much tax revenue as municipalities do. So the resources we're often able to provide community members is often limited. Communities, as you may know, Squayala, Chiacton, they've done economic development, which gives them a far larger revenue to bring in money and then to start to deliver resources to their community members. And that would be my vision for Chawathil as well, is we need to work towards, it depends on what the community wants. Do they want more resource extraction? Do they want more tourism? This is a community decision. My role is to help facilitate those conversations on how can we get out of poverty, how can we make sure members are supported and improve their living circumstances and educational opportunities.
Right. You know, one of the things that I think about, like I've been on a number of councils, you know, like I'm in as a condo, we have it's run by a council, and I was part of the Optimist Club. All of them have a council, and it's hard for people to remember sometimes that you're supposed to be doing what's best for everybody, right?
Absolutely.
So there's those people that don't like it, as you mentioned. There's some people that don't like, well, you know, they don't want this, but if it's but they don't. How do you get them to look at the bigger picture? That's the thing. How do you get people to look at the bigger picture?
Yeah, that is a really important thing that can be challenging, but it's always about zooming back out. So we can get caught on, this is my parcel of land, not your parcel of land. This person's getting more funding in this regard, and we can always go to that zoomed in place. And the goal is to zoom back out and say, okay, what is the long-term, the 5-year goal, the 10-year goal? And I think then when you zoom out, you start to see that we all have the same goals. We want our youth to be well educated, to be able to go to post-secondary school. We want people to have food in their fridge. We want people to feel like all the opportunities are theirs to just grab, as long as we support them in that. And so when we zoom out, I think it's a lot less political. But when you zoom in on who's, for your example of a condo, who's getting their windows washed, who's getting their vacuums cleaned, then you start to go, well, that person had more focus on theirs. But when you zoom out, we all want that kind of improvement long-term. And so, yes, you might see this person get more resources today, but next week you might be getting those exact same resources. So give it time and trust that our goal is just to improve everybody's circumstances.
Right. Now, what kind of term does a chief run for?
So it's a 3-year term. So mayor and council in most municipalities upgraded to a 4-year term. So ours is still 3-year. And I think that that's good in the early stages of our communities to have a mandate and then to see where we're at in those 3 years. So I wouldn't look to change that because I think we need to give communities the opportunity to say, hey, are we on the right track or are we on the wrong track? The big problem I see right now is we have no real strong external relationships. So we do have business partners that we work with, but we're not in communication with them, and we're not seeking to expand them or shrink them down, depending on how we feel like that partnership's going. We have no real relationship with the municipality of Hope, the District of Hope, or Agassiz. And so those are other things I'd like to change. So we're at those tables too. They have a 10-year plan, a 20-year plan. Where does Chawathil fit into those plans? And how can we help them succeed in their own endeavors? And how can they help us reach our potential? And so looking outwards is part of the role of chief. It's less of the role of council. And so I think that I can bring that. I've obviously sat down with the mayor of Abbotsford. I know the mayor of Chilliwack. He's a great individual. And so I think I can bring that kind of relationship building to the community as well.
Right. I was reading one of your posts where it says, like, some people question, why aren't you running for like a counselor? But you mentioned that you have some really good counselors, right?
We do, and they have lots of experience. And when Rhoda, the chief now, pitched me the idea of running for chief, she said, we want council probably to stay very similar to how it's made now, because they already understand the problems. They understand sort of how to improve things incrementally. And so we have that knowledge already. It's just we don't have a leader who's inspiring people, who's saying, why can't we be great like Seabird? A lot of people in the Chilliwack, in the Fraser Valley, they know Seabird, they know Stehalis, they know Squiala, they know Shiacton, they don't know Chawathil. And so that's something I'd like to change. And so we have to look at how do we get a message out there of what we're doing well on, of where we hope to take our community. And that kind of long-term vision is, I think, what I'm bringing that's unique to the position of chief.
Right. Like I personally didn't know anything about Chawathil until recently. Like I've interviewed Melody Andrews, and I'm going to be going back to do another interview with her. And it was quite insightful for me to learn these things, as a white person, as a non-Indigenous person, I'm really in the process of learning about Indigenous people and the challenges they face, the racism. I hear stuff all the time. They misinformation that we have, a lot of us have about Indigenous people. Is that something that you're going to be involved with at all?
Involved in misinformation or involved in
spelling or fixing it, like, no, that's not true, we don't do this, or we
I think I am a part of that for the most part, like sitting down with various chiefs, sitting down with artists and sharing the beauty of the culture. I think it's good that people are learning about the atrocities of the past, Indian residential school, the 60s scoop. But if that's all your knowledge base is, I think that's dangerous too, because then now all you think is we're victims, that we have problems, and that doesn't really set an example of encouragement for where we could go. I think the story of Indigenous people is that of resilience, of overcoming government policies and detrimental institutions. And now we're on the comeback. And I want to leave that kind of flavor in people's mouth of like, no, we've gotten through all of this, and watch us become the growing economies in BC now. Watch us make a difference. Watch us enrich your culture. Watch us improve things like the criminal justice system by adding in our cultural understandings of things to make it better, not to take anything away from it. And so I hope that people are able to start to see that, because I think there is a danger in just knowing the negative aspects of what has happened.
Yeah, one thing's for sure, like with the one of the things that I've learned, another thing is like with what happened in Lytton, how supportive a community for Indigenous people can be in times like that, when everybody's homes are gone, or whatever it is you're facing, right? The communities come together strongly.
That's what actually happened during the floods, during the atmospheric river in Hope. Is Chawathil, actually, we opened up our gym, we brought in extra generators, and we supported people who were in the District of Hope who needed a place to stay. And our frustration was we didn't feel acknowledged by the District of Hope for the role that we played. And we would like to, in the future, partner if there is another atmospheric river again. But that disconnect needs to be mended, and we need to bring those communities together for all of our benefits, so that we utilize resources to the best of their abilities. And I think that that's where I hope to take things, because there is similarities between our cultures. And I think that that's something we've done a terrible job of explaining. Like many people in Canada say grace. Well, for Indigenous people, we have salmon ceremonies. Both are a form of being grateful, being gracious for the food that we have, the warmth that we have in our homes. There are different aspects of the culture that overlap with each other. Many Christian cultures have the idea of going to see a priest or a pastor. For us, it's often going to our elders, people to look to for wisdom and advice. And I think when we can start to look at that and share those commonalities, we'll start to see that we're far less different than we like to think. And that where those differences still exist is something to take an interest in and learn from.
Right. Yeah. No, you're also an ambassador for the Indigenous Tourism BC, right?
Yes. That was a position that I got a little while ago now, I think in May. And it was a huge opportunity to start to share Indigenous entrepreneurship. I actually, in law school, wrote a paper. A lot of people think that Indigenous entrepreneurship is like a new thing, but pre-colonization, Western culture coming to Canada, we were trading salmon, canoes, whale blubber, stuff like that. and having value to those things. And then we got very involved during the fur trade and switched a lot of our economies over. So I think that that's an aspect of Indigenous culture, and being able to sit down with entrepreneurs and hear about their passion for their business, it's always a blast.
Right. So when is the election?
The election takes place September 13th. Voting is open now for members. They're allowed to vote on an app called One Feather. That was a huge advancement in our election code. The other was allowing off-reserve members to be able to run. So I actually don't live on Chawathil First Nation. I live in Chilliwack. So they've changed the election code to allow people like myself to be able to run and hold seats. And then the other is being able to use an app called One Feather to vote. So you don't have to just wait until election day. You can actually vote just by going on and putting in your information and placing your vote.
Very good. Well, we're going to end it there because I know you're so busy. I do appreciate you taking the time. Just stay on camera for a little bit. So everybody, you've been listening to Aaron Pete, and check out his podcast called a Bigger Than Me podcast. I think you'll be quite impressed with the guests he interviews. And if you're First Nations and you're watching this and you can vote in this area, then please do. One Feather, right?
Yes. Well, thank you, Nancy. Your questions were fantastic, very thoughtful. This was a great time, and I really appreciate you reaching out.
Thank you. Thanks, Aaron. Thank you, everybody, for watching this show. I hope you liked it, and share it, and subscribe is always nice. And be nice. Peace out, everyone.
A sense of community, Chilliwack's a place to be. A sense of community when you're free. Rolling through the mountains, rolling through the valley, rolling through paradise with me. It's multicultural, you're sure to see it all. Chilliwack's the place to be, you'll see. Come party in the park, go dancing after dark. Chilliwack's the place to be, you'll see.